The First Book of Christ for Atheists, chapter 26, Homosexuality. The book is available on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, and that's all for free, or you can purchase it for $20 from Amazon. Okay, chapter 26, Homosexuality. There are a number of passages in the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament that have been interpreted as involving same-sex sexual activity and relationships. The passages about homosexual individuals and sexual relations in the Hebrew Bible are found primarily in the Torah, the first 5 books traditionally attributed to Moses. The book of Leviticus, chapter 20, is more comprehensive on matters of detestable sexual acts. Some texts included in the New Testament also reference homosexual individuals and sexual relations, such as the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Luke, and Pauline epistles, originally directed to the early Christian churches in Asia Minor. Both references in the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament have been interpreted as referring primarily to male homosexual individuals and sexual practices. Leviticus 20:13. If a man has sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. If we only listen to the Bible, we don't have to think, and somehow we feel that we are moral. As modern free-thinking societies recognize more and more how different people have different attractions, we become more tolerant of those differences. As a young man, I followed the teachings of the Bible and hence felt that the act of homosexuality was sinful. Once I started thinking for myself and getting to know men with that persuasion, I had to look at myself with shame. Being open-minded didn't come easy for me. I am very suspicious and distrusting by nature. So when the Winnipeg Jets were formed by Benny Haskins in 1972, and soon after Elton John brought out a song, Benny and the Jets, I suspected that Elton used this event to create his song. When I asked if this was where he got his inspiration, Elton said it was just a coincidence. I think that perhaps he was thinking about royalty payments to Ben Haskins, or something like that. I didn't believe him, and being one of the early celebrities to outwardly expose his lifestyle, I was suspect of his morality. What else would Elton John lie about to protect his own agenda? In my suspicious way, I questioned whether Elton John was fighting inner demons when he wrote the lyrics, "Don't let the sun go down on me." It was only later when I discovered that he wrote, "Don't let the S-U-N, sun, go down on me." Nobody has ever accused me of not being an idiot. Over time, I met some very fine people, such as Mel, who worked at my uncle's business and was my uncle's best friend. Mel had a flair for artistry and was a kind man with a big heart. My cousin is a good person who works with AIDS patients. In my late teens, it was still against the law to be a homosexual, as society attempted to protect itself from disease and to follow the teaching of the Bible and the Koran. My brother-in-law was a policeman and was assigned to identify the fellows that would go to the OB's steam room, as it was a well-known place for homosexuals to hang out. Keeping a record of who frequented that place was the city's way of monitoring potential lawbreakers or disease spreaders. Neither of these situations occurred, and the boys kept up their weekly activities there. My future mother-in-law worked at a restaurant that was called the Chocolate Shop, where the homosexuals would frequent. I didn't make that name up, believe me. My mother-in-law would comment on how the men would flirt with the male servers who were young and impressionable, as if soliciting them to join their lifestyle. This too provided me with suspicion about the group and whether they were a problem in our society. Gradually, I met some very nice homosexuals who lived a lifetime with partners and who found their relationships solid both physically and emotionally. One such man worked at our archdiocese and had adopted a little girl with his partner. He worked teaching Catholicism for the Catholic School Board in our city and was well educated and could effectively bring the teaching of Christ to our young students. Unfortunately, it eventually got out that he was cohabitating with another man, and the Archbishop had to make that awful decision to remove him from employment. Today we recognize the differences in humankind, but the Archbishop, by being at the head of a bureaucracy that moves slowly, had a difficult decision to make, and that was to terminate my friend from his employment with the Catholic School Board. Was he right? I don't think so. We lost a terrific teacher and a good human being because we were following old laws that are so outdated that they make our decisions immoral. Sadly, in some circumstances, it is the way of the church. I know 3 beautiful women who lost their spouses to men, with one after bearing his children. I don't think that I will ever understand it, but at least I have matured enough that I can accept it. If you read Leviticus, you would pretty much be taught to kill those people who would do things that Leviticus doesn't feel is right. Perhaps he should have spent more of his life on accepting people instead of judging them. Like heterosexuals, there are homosexuals that are there for the thrills and personal pleasure, and those that are there because they have found the right person or a group of friends that they are comfortable with to cohabitate with. I see the homosexual boys we witnessed in the Florida Keys as being just there for the chuckles. They had a club right next to a dance club for minors. As a parent, I'd be very concerned about my child being persuaded to try a lifestyle just because a group would enjoy having sex with them. My uncle's friend Mel had a group of friends that he would meet with every Tuesday at OB's steam room. My uncle was a kind person and allowed them to come for drinks in the hall at his chapel at OB's. I don't know what these fellows were doing in the steam room at OB's, but I wouldn't doubt that they were playing games like hide the salami. Dancing and prancing and expecting total acceptance to a lifestyle that they choose is not acceptable to me. Living a good life in that persuasion without flaunting and promoting is what I would expect. While same-sex relationships are accepted in the more liberal societies, there are other behaviors that we are confronted with. In our species, there are those that choose very unusual things to do with their bodies and those of others. The Necrophiliac Society wanted to come to my uncle's funeral home for a stiff one, but he turned them down. I don't have to understand it, but if I want to be like Jesus, I have to accept our differences without judgment. Sadly, we are led by people who are self-righteous and think that they know what is best. The ebb and flow of self-righteousness impacts those on the outskirts of societal behavior. My own bad behavior, such as spitting on a teacher, didn't need punishment. It was stupid and childish, and I lived with the shame all my life. Why embarrass the teacher who didn't know what I did? Expelling me, publicly humiliating me, or whatever the zealots of self-righteousness would have for me would not have made up for what I did.